Elvis Presley's life as it has never been told on television, by intimates who have never spoken about the Elvis nobody knew. The innocence, the guilt, the rivalry with the Beatles, the women he couldn't love, the world he couldn't face. A life reconstructed on film with carefully selected performers who represented the three stages of Elvis's life. A searing portrait of an image so indelible that even now it provokes controversy over a postage stamp. The boy, his mother loved him too much. The king, he became a star like the world has never known. The man, millions adored him, yet in his last moments, he died alone.
Three different sources I heard I was strung out on heroin. I've never been strung out in my life.
The true story. This is Hard Copy for Thursday, August 13, 1992. Good evening and welcome. I'm Gordon Elliott. From a poor backyard in the Deep South to the backlot here at the giant Paramount Studios in Hollywood, he left behind the sounds of greatness. There's never been one to touch so deeply with song, the greatest entertainer of his time, or to touch so deeply in death. I, Elvis, is the most intimate, truthful portrait of the inner man that television has ever presented. It's the story of fame and fortune, of generosity and self-indulgence, of hope and despair, of the birth of an era and the death of an innocence. By the time he reached the age of 42, he was the most famous man on earth. Any night he had his pick of the most beautiful women. Entertainers, politicians, and royalty all wanted to shake his hand, to touch him. With 140 gold records and millions of dollars, he could buy anything. The world was his, and yet somehow it wasn't enough.
I'm gonna go read a while.
Fall asleep.
On an August morning in 1977, an overweight, drugged Elvis stepped into his bathroom and suffered a seizure. His fiancée was asleep in his bed. The staff of his palatial estate were seconds away, but he was alone. Nobody heard, nobody came. As the great man's breathing failed and he started to hemorrhage, Elvis Presley had to realize that he was dying, a victim of his own excesses.
The autopsy report shows that he lived for a short time because there were broken blood vessels, a little hemorrhaging, and that he lay there on the floor long enough for these hemorrhages to occur before he finally died. It could have been 5 minutes, it could have been 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes at the outside.
If it is true that in such moments you recall all your days on earth, then his life flashed before his eyes. And in the case of Elvis, oh, what a life it was.
Elvis, let's listen to some real music.
You got the control, Scotty.
Elvis, that's us!
Elvis Aaron Presley started life dirt poor. So poor, his father Vernon was once thrown into jail for forging a check to buy food. His family always seemed to live in projects. But Elvis had been given two great gifts. Looks that could drive women into a frenzy and a voice to make the angels weep. And when he combined those gifts with black rhythm and blues, the result was sexual hysteria. There had never been anyone like him.
He was perfect. I mean, if you're going to build a rocket to shoot down a certain kind of airplane, he was there. God put him on this earth to get women in an uproar. You know, it was a perfect, they destroyed them all.
The reaction of little girls was very much like the same reaction of older girls. And that was orgiastic.
After 10 months of playing small clubs and fairs all over the South, Elvis is learning how to work a crowd the way few have ever mastered. The hundreds of dollars a week he's earning then must seem like a fortune. But within a year, Elvis will be a millionaire. And perhaps because he was such a loner growing up, Elvis is already gathering a tight-knit group around him that will become known as the Memphis Mafia.
When I first met Elvis, he was very shy, humble, very nice person, and tried very hard to make friends, because I think all during his early years he didn't have too many friends. So I think later on, like I say, when he became famous, he wanted to have friends around, and he spent money on them because he felt